Welcome to Behind the Build, presented by ATL BitLab. I'm Stephen DeLorme, and this is a podcast where we talk directly to Freedom Tech builders about their latest projects. On this show, you are going to hear about topics like Bitcoin, the Lightning Network, privacy, cyber computing, decentralization, and all kinds of cool stuff. This episode is sponsored by ATL BitLab. ATL BitLab is Atlanta's Freedom Tech hackerspace. We have co-working desks, conference rooms, event space, maker tools, and tons of coffee. There is a very active community here in the lab. Every Wednesday night is Bitcoin night here in Atlanta. We also have meetups for cybersecurity, artificial intelligence, decentralized identity, product design, and more. We offer day passes and nomad passes for people who need to use the lab only occasionally, as well as memberships for people who plan to use the lab more regularly, such as myself. One of the best things about having a BitLab membership isn't the amenities, it's the people. Surrounding yourself with a community helps you learn faster and helps you build better. Your creativity becomes amplified when you work in this space. That's what I think, at least. If you're interested in becoming a member or supporting the space, please visit us at atlbitlab.com. That's atlbitlab.com. All right, on to our show. I'm here on the podcast with Farscapian. Welcome.
Thank you for having me.
So you are here at ATL BitLab. You are in town for a competitive tap dancing conference. Is that correct?
Not quite.
Oh, okay.
No, so I'm actually in town. I'm doing a workshop at TabConf on Saturday about Bolt 12 Prisms.
Dope.
All right.
I love Bolt 12. Yeah, love it enough to have worked on a website for it, actually.
Yeah, I link to your website frequently. It's an excellent redesign, I have to say.
Thank you.
Yeah.
So I have up on screen here roygbiv.guide. What is roygbiv?
Okay, so there's a little backstory to this one.
Yeah.
But a couple years ago at Bitcoin in Austin, Texas, there was a few of us who got together and we joined a team called roygbiv. And the purpose of that was to create what's called Bolt 12 Prism. And a Prism is essentially a payment split implementation. And in our case, we chose Bolt 12 for the payment transport, if you will. And so in the meantime, 2 years have passed and we've been kind of working on this plugin. It's a core Lightning plugin. And we've been working on other things around it as well. And we're ready to kind of present what is Bolt 12 Prism and give attendees an idea of what it might look like in some open source software as well.
Yeah. So maybe let's dig into some of that a little bit there. So you mentioned the word Prism there. So you don't really need Bolt 12 to make a Prism, right?
Yeah, so I think this is, a Prism conceptually is simply a payment split mechanism. And so you can think of this conceptually in different ways and kind of use different primitives, I think, to implement a Prism. And I think maybe you're going to talk a little bit about that on Saturday as well. And so, but for what I've been focusing on specifically is Bolt 12 Prism. So the core Lightning plugin that we developed, I should mention Gudnuf. He's one of the contributors of this project. He and I work pretty closely together on it. And but what we've chosen is Bolt 12 for the transport, mostly due to all of its privacy properties and other things like route blinding and payment or hints and stuff like that. And anyway, it's our kind of idea that it's going to be the hot new thing in terms of like making payments on Lightning. And in particular, for Prisms, having that one-time code that you can associate recurring payments on is very important for Prisms, because what it allows us to do is basically look at payments as flows of sats, because we can associate them with a particular flow of data, and having that mechanism allows us to do the accounting essentially for the Prism functionality.
So that actually might be a good time to pull up some visuals. You were talking about the payment flows. Let me go to your website here, and I think this is the one. Yeah. So maybe it might be first worth it to just actually pull up kind of where all this started. I think this is where it started. This is
that's right.
Gigi's blog post,
Yeah,
or is it Gigi? Like it's kind of like animated GIF. Like, did we ever figure out how to say?
Yeah, I always say Gigi, but I'm not really sure.
Okay, we'll say Gigi then. Okay, so this was his original blog post about this, and was this like your inspiration? Like, had you thought about something like Prisms before this?
Yeah, I read this like many people when it came out. Being a Twitter user at the time, and I thought it was a really interesting conception. And my background is in mostly networking and traffic IP flows. I used to work at an ISP for a while and do cybersecurity work, and I don't know, just the whole flow of traffic and routing your sats around kind of appealed to me, being a network engineer. And so, but aside from that, I was developing what I call value for value websites using BTC Pay Server on another project of mine. And, and learning about Bolt 12 and reading this paper, I thought, well, it would be really cool to have some kind of payment split mechanism using Bolt 12 when it comes out. And that's what we've essentially created. Now, this article here mentions as one of the first use cases, if you scroll down a little bit, you can see one obvious use case is value splits for blog posts and other long form writing. And so what we've done basically is we've taken roygbib.guide and paired it with the Bolt 12 Prism plugin, and we've created this use case. So roygbib.guide is the first website, at least that I know of, that is based on Bolt 12 Prisms. And it uses, all of the essential characteristics of the plugin, namely what I call local Prism composability. So when you read this article, he'll discuss the concept of Prism composability. But one of the cool things with these Prisms is that, since we're doing a payment split, one of the payments, the outgoing payments, could go to another Prism, which gets further split. Now, that Prism can exist on a remote machine. That's typically what we think of, or a remote Lightning node. But that Prism could also be issued by your local Lightning node. And so what we've done with this website basically is we've created now, if you want to go back to Roy,
good job.
Right. Yes. Scroll down. Now, I added a link. You see that where it says, or click to view the original diagram. So this kind of shows you the flow of the data coming in. So right there, where it says tip offer external Prism binding, that's kind of where the tips, what I call the root level tips, come in. So if you want to tip the entire website and have those tips kind of split among the various posts, and then once that post receives some stats, it splits it out to the actual authors of that post. Yeah. So it's like, it's like sats are trickling down. If I like to tell people, imagine like a Plinko board. Have you seen those where you put the puck at the top and it kind of trickles down?
Knots that trickle down.
Yeah. So you can kind of think of Prisms that way in some sense, that stats are coming in and trickling down the Plinko board, and your Prisms are the pegs, basically, that kind of divert your stats going down.
Well, let's dig into this a little bit, because I think I've looked at this, or not, I've looked at the non-animated version of this before, so there may be people listening who have actually only listening that this makes a lot of sense, but alternatives to narrate it. So we've got the diagram on the screen. On the left-hand side, we have tip and roygbib.guide. So that's kind of like our entry point into this. And so the idea is that and I'm narrating this from my own understanding, so coming off like a second here, but so tip at roygbib.guide is kind of conceptually like, I want to tip this entire website, this entire blog. And so I'm just a fan of this blog. I want to send them some sats. So I send them some sats, and then we have this, that arrow goes to the external Prism binding, and that's like the entry point right there. And from there, we say that, okay, and it's kind of like vanilla form, a Prism would be like maybe it splits to 3 different people. And each 3 people have their own offer or payment address, if you're less technical. So But in this case, it's not actually going to 3 different people. It's actually going to 3 other prisms. And one of them is the B4B page, the demo page, and the about page. And so if you go to the storagegov.com website, these are separate pages on this blog. So each page has its own prism. And then from there, if we look at each page, this page's prism basically branches out to the individual authors. So in this case here, the value for value page has so you have yourself, you have Farscapian here as one of the offer that it gets paid to. And this is kind of inside of this lightning node diagram. So it's like all of your offers, because you're running the lightning node, you have your offers generated by the same lightning node.
Correct.
These are local offers. And then the other offers that the prisms are paying to, the diagrams are going outside of your lightning node. And so like you have one for John Ribbon and Gudnuf, and their offers are on other nodes.
That's right. And you can see that I have like a little lightning icon underneath there, and that represents that those remote offers incur lightning network fees. So obviously if we're paying to a local offer, it's not going to incur any fees because we're paying to ourselves. And the problem with Lightning Network and implementing this Prism thing, and I wouldn't say a problem per se, but one issue we had was, well, how do we split an incoming payment? Well, it turns out you can't do that atomically in any meaningful way right now, unless there are some protocol updates, maybe. But we don't actually want to do that because there's issues like, okay, what if one node is offline? We have to and what if 2 nodes? Well, that's multiplicative in terms of the probability of not being able to make it. So instead, what we do is we track this thing called an outlay. So as payments come in, we're basically saying, hey, we intend to pay this offer X amount of sats, MSATs. And when they're online next time and we try to make a payment, it'll go through and reduce that outlay. And so you can kind of view Prisms as a way to cache your sats, if you will. So like sats can come in and you're going to pay a destination later, but maybe they're not online. It'll kind of create like a little buffer, if you will. So think of the networking and you have switching, and the switch can receive the entire frame and then do like a buffer check on it, a CRC check. So I kind of relate it to that in a networking sense. We should view these sats as flows of sats, much like in networking where you have traffic flows.
Yeah, that's a good point to bring up, that they're not atomic. And so like one of these prisms, like you got a pretty epic prism at the bottom of this diagram. It's got 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6 people, 7 people. So I think that was the original hackathon team. So that's like 7 lightning nodes that a single prism has to pay. Well, 6 if you count one of them as your node. So, but that's a lot of lightning nodes. And so you're just holding on, this prism is just going to hold on to the sats until those nodes come back online. How do you handle that? Is that like just, does it have to just retry every couple of seconds or something?
Yeah, we have a number of ideas on how to improve this, but at the moment, the node has to be online, the remote node receiving the payout, and a payment has to come into the offer in which the Prism is attached. So in other words, our node won't attempt to make a payment until we get an incoming payment on that offer.
Got it.
What we want to do is kind of make that process, or the process of clearing outlays, happen in the background on a recurring basis, right? Yeah. So it's always trying basically and trying to clear those outlays. One thing I forgot to mention earlier is one of the problems with Lightning Network is that we don't know the fees until the payment actually goes through.
Yeah.
So one thing Lightning does is and I could be a little bit wrong on this or mistaken, not perfectly accurate, but it attempts to make a number of payments, and each of those might have a different fee associated with them.
Yeah.
And then you might find one path that actually goes through, and then the actual fee.
Yeah, that's my understanding of it as well.
So it's like you can't figure out a way to atomically split that when the payouts are, you don't know the total amount until after the payment is made. So you basically got to track your outlays or your fees over time.
Yeah, that is interesting, because it also could just be, it's an interesting kind of an accounting question, because it's like, okay, if I send 1,000 sats from Prism, then and it's split up among 3 people, like it's perfect 33% split between three people, some people might incur different fees depending on their location on the network graph. And so it's like, I guess the fees just get kind of deducted from that person's split.
That's essentially correct. So it gets deducted from that person's future split of future payment flows. So like, well,
their future payment flows.
Yeah. So again, we should be looking at things as flows, right? Yeah. So we track, let's say they had a payout and it cost, 1,000 sats for that payout. We'll put 1,000 sats or a negative 1,000 sats on the outlay, suggesting that, they have a deficiency there. And the payments will have to come in to basically offset that fee over time.
Okay, so if it's I don't know why I chose 33%. Let's say it's 4 people, 25%. That makes sense. More people for some reason. Say it's 1,000 sats. You split it 4 people. Every person gets 250 sats. The Lightning node, the Prism node, actually pays the fee out of its own pockets for each route, but it incurs it. It like records that as like, okay, Alice, I paid 1 sat for your last payment, so you have like a balance like -1. But Bob, yours cost me 5 sats, so you have a balance of -5.
That's right.
And then next time, Alice, and next time that Prism gets paid, the Prism node just deducts some of their payment to pay off their tax.
That's right. So when their outlays increase again because they have an income event, then it's just getting added to that existing outlay, with the -5 or whatever. And so over time, it kind of just like the accounting works out.
Yeah, that makes sense.
But at any given moment, the node operator may have some kind of liability, if you will, or deficiency.
Yeah.
Right. So in terms of like, if you have a bunch of negative outlays, then you're taking on risk that is proportionate to that.
I was thinking about just this sort of thing earlier today because, I've had some discussions in your Roy room, and, it's interesting kind of watching people discuss things in that chat room because I feel like there's a lot of different, different people have different priorities when they're approaching the concept of a prism, of like what's the most important thing. And one of them, one topic I've seen discussed before was kind of like atomicity. Like should prisms be this kind of thing where like either everybody gets paid or nobody gets paid? And I think the solution you have in place right now is very elegant and works because that's just like, from a user experience angle, you basically just you want some better guarantees that you're going to get your money, and you don't want to be the situation of like, oh, somebody tipped to the entire band, but the drummer didn't get their cut of the share because they just happen to be having wallet issues during that moment in time. Mm-hmm. So your node can hold on to it and pay them later when their wallet is fixed or back online. You also want a situation where, because the drummer's wallet is having difficulties, that the entire band misses out on a payment. And that would be the problem at the atomic approach, I think. But I was thinking like, you could, it might actually be possible to do an atomic prism. You could do something where like the kind of like hold invoice or something, and the prism node could just like hold it wouldn't be like fully atomic. It wouldn't be like trustless, but you could do something where like the prism does not resolve the HTLC, and then it basically pays the members of the prism, and then once those 4 payments are like resolved, like if it is able to resolve all 4 of those, then it resolves the HTLC that it was sent originally. But it's just kind of like, it's technically possible, but it kind of feels to me like, well, why would we do it? Like, do we really want prisms to be atomic?
Right. And, in the presentation I'm going to give on Cedar, I'm going to make the case that we don't actually want that, on the Lightning Network, but it's kind of above my pay grade. I'm not really a protocol developer, and when you start talking about HTLCs, I get a little glazed over. But from my perspective, what you could have is a primary and a backup Prism host, right? Yeah. So like you have the singer of the band and maybe the drummer both run a Lightning node, And then you can have a construction where if you can't pay, the primary, you can go to a backup, and both of them implement the same Prism basically. So there's other ways to increase the availability or the likelihood that your payment goes through. Now, with regard to like the atomicity, I don't think you're actually going to have any kind of trustless solution or trust minimized solution until you have like the protocol support.
Yeah.
Because in the case of what we built, you're paying a Lightning node. And therefore, you have to trust that Lightning node is going to split the payment according to what they say they're going to split it.
Yeah.
Right? They could be just taking all the money and not ever paying anybody out.
Yeah.
Right. So there's always that case. But I think this is a good first case for like a value for value tipping website. Now, I will mention after I mention that core Lightning, there are ways that you can give a rune to a remote or one of the Prism members. And they can like check what the prisms are at any given time on the node using commando and over the Lightning node. So that's one way to kind of make the prisms public, or at least share the Prism policy and the binding information with members of your Prism. That way they can have more assurances that they're not getting cheated, right?
That would be kind of a fun, interesting project if you had like a website or something like that that could, some kind of easy to use package you could deploy for someone that would have like a nice lightweight Lightning node bundled with it, along with a website. And of course, the administrator who sets up the website to begin with controls the node and the website, but can grant these kind of like, rune keys or something for the people, the other members, like the users of the website, to kind of observe the payment flow.
Right. Right now, like, so BTC Pay Server, you can actually just provision a user and they can log in and see your store and see what payments are going through. But in this case, we implemented the Bolt12 Prism plugin as a core Lightning plugin. And so the current mechanism we have right now, because there's no like direct UI support, as far as I know, for like runes and things like that, is just like using commando. But you can issue commando commands against a remote node so long as you have a rune. Yeah. So just issue a rune for your Prism members, and they should be able to interrogate your node and ensure that they're getting payments.
So what brought you into the core Lightning world?
I don't know. I just, I was kind of reading the L&D release notes and core Lightning release notes, and I was kind of around for the block size wars, and I was kind of a small blocker, and I thought the Blockstream people had their, shit together basically, and so I was already biased, I think, towards what they were creating. So far, I like core Lightning, it's worked well. The plugin architecture, I think, is really the selling point for me. Is it's not going to be this big monolithic thing. It's called plugin architecture, which is nice because you can just pick and choose what plugins you want for your particular use case. In my case, it would be a value for value website, Bolt12 Prisms, and I also run CL Boss, so that I don't have to do all of the channel liquidity management. But this is related to my other project, Ellen Play, which is a Lightning Network simulator, but it does include the Bolt12 Prism plugin. So if you go back to the website there and go to the demo page, I think this is worth a look.
Yeah, that's good. We'll see up here at the top.
Yeah, that's right. And then scroll down. So we created a demo, and what you can do if you're at a meetup or something is you can have pick 5 individuals in your meetup and have one be the fan, one be the singer, one be the drummer, guitarist, tuba. Okay, so click the fan and you can kind of see what it looks like.
And we see I'm actually just going to pop this thing open. Here we go. That's fun looking.
So now this is Clams Remote. This is a completely different project.
Dude, they used to be like Art Deco.
Yeah.
They were like black and white with like an Art Deco logo.
Yeah. You can, in the settings, you can turn off the lava lamp if you want, but I think it looks good there. Yeah, so now we're on the fan. The fan is meant to tip the singer. Okay. So why don't you go back and go to the singer.
And it's close. By GG.
Yeah, go to the singer and see if that opens up in the separate tab correctly. Click wallets really quick. I just want to make sure. Okay. So notice you're connected to Singer. They have 1 Bitcoin. Now, Clams Remote, this is running in your browser, but it's connecting to a remote core Lightning node. that's running on AWS. Now, so this L play, the thing that I've created is basically it deploys a bunch of core Lightning nodes that are all in the same reg test environment. And it gives them one Bitcoin and of course it's reg test. And then it sets up the channels properly for doing Prism testing and so on. So yeah, so go back and let's see, we want to go to plugin. Okay, so I was worried about. Okay.
So I think we can't open them in multiple tabs. It looks like it's.
Yeah. I have never tested it quite like that. I always use the back functionality, but we can.
Let's try it out and see what happens. So if I go here and go wallets, okay, now I'm on Bit. So okay, I'll just use the back functionality.
Yeah.
Sure, you make
No, yeah. Well, we need to go look at Stinger first.
All right, so you go back to back.
We lost Roy J. There.
Okay.
Yes. Click Singer,
Okay.
and then go to plugins really quick, and let's go look at the Bolt 12 Prism plugin. Now I have to hand it to the Clams guys. They are awesome. They implemented all of this, and also we had a proof of concept developed by Michael Evans. But anyway, so we have a band Prism here. So go ahead and click that. You can see that it has 3 members defined: drummer, guitarist, tuba, and you can click each of those and kind of see what their Prism policy is. And you can see the destination, that would be the Bolt 12 offer. The split is 1-1-1, meaning they all get equal splits. And so you could do something like 0.33, 0.33, 0.33 there. That's a float. And so you can kind of represent it that way. And then we have the fees incurred by, it's either remote or local. So by default, it's remote, meaning that we, like, as payments come in, we're going to account for the fees, and the remote node is going to pay for it, right, over time. Right?
Yeah.
And then the payout threshold is like, okay, if we set something non-zero there, then the outlay is going to have to accumulate until it reaches that threshold, and then it'll pay for it. So you can kind of think of that as like your buffer area, right? Sats are going to kind of accumulate, and then they're going to attempt to clear.
Yeah.
And so that's kind of you can kind of think of that as a traffic flow control mechanism, if you will. Right. And then so if you scroll up a bit there, you'll see the binding, and you can see that band Prism offer there. If you click that, it'll show you the offer. Okay, so click the copy button now and go back to the fan.
And go here.
And then go to the scan button at the upper right. Close that one down. And then paste. And then click that button offer. Yeah. And then put in something we'll recognize for the amount, like, I don't know. There you go. I can say it. Perfect. Okay, pay. Okay, so that completed. Now we can either go back to, let's go back to the Singer and see if we can see those those payments come through.
Back.
Now there is a way to run clams in multi-wallet mode, and so that may be something we look at.
I think it was 0.994.
Okay, well, go back and let's go look at the payments. Click payments, and you'll see the 1971 there. Okay, and then you'll see the 3 493s that got split out. Those are going to the tuba. What were they? Tuba. I forget what they were. They're guitarist, tuba, and drummer.
Wait. Oh, okay. So Singer receives sats from this node IG right here.
That's right.
And those 1971 sats. And then from there, Singer sends sats to guitarist and tuba.
Yeah, you see they're not. It should show the payment to the singer to the drummer above the night. It's not ordering it quite right, but
I see. They all happened at
the same time.
Okay, because there's 493. Okay, see, that makes sense.
Now you'll see that there should be, we're missing a few stats there, and that's because we retained some, right? As the singer, as one of the members of the Prism, is entitled to some sats.
Yeah.
And so the Prism policy basically is saying, hey, I'm going to keep 0.25 of the incoming amount. And so that's what we call an implicit pay to self. And that's a different mechanism than an explicit pay to self, which you can use for the local Prism composability. So there are just a couple of different ways to retain sets. One is implicit, the other one is explicit.
And that's cover the fee?
That essentially is to ensure that the person who is hosting the Prism can be a member of the Prism.
Okay, I see what you're saying. That's just what allows the singer to both run the Prism and also have their own offer be a part of the Prism.
That's right. Because one of the things when we first implemented back at Bitcoin++, the Prism implementation is we didn't think about this part. And our initial implementation essentially required that we have a third party run the Prism.
Yeah.
And in other words, you couldn't pay to self or retain any much. So we had to insert that in there. And we actually did that, or part of that, for the Bitcoin++ following year.
Oh, okay.
Yeah.
So I know I have tried to pay offers on my core Lightning node before and have them fail, like, oh, but you can't pay to sell.
Yeah. So the most recent Core Lightning update 24.08 included support for Bolt 12 pay to sell.
Okay.
And RoyGBiv.guide is using that functionality currently as we speak to implement the cascading stat flow, the local Prism composability.
Perfect.
Now, in our Prism plugin, we do not currently have support for ensuring that there are no loops in your Prism. Right? So one thing you want to ensure is that you don't have any loops in your Prism construction. Right?
So, like, if I have a Prism that pays another Prism, that Prism is set to pay Prism 3. Prism 1 is set to pay Prism 2, which is set to pay Prism 3, which is set to pay Prism 1.
That's right.
So if I did set that up right now, would it, like, crash my node?
I'm not exactly sure what would happen, but I think so. Now the Core Lightning people may have included some kind of mechanism for detecting loops.
Yeah.
But I'm not exactly sure yet. And I haven't brought that up with him, but that's something we'll be testing shortly. But I think it is as simple, at least as far as the plugin is concerned, as ensuring we basically just represent the Prism graph as a DAG. And if it's a DAG, then it should be loop-free. I think. Maybe not. Maybe there's some other thing that got
directed acyclic graph.
That's right.
Yeah.
We just want to make sure there are no loops.
Yeah, because if there were loops, I mean, that would be kind of an interesting security vulnerability if you, like, I don't know, found a way to crash Lightning wallets, crash Lightning nodes or whatever by tricking them into paying themselves.
Yeah,
create some kind of loop or something like that.
Yeah, now in networking, what they usually do is they attach a TTL to the packet or the frame or whatever, and each router will decrement that TTL, and if it reaches 0, it'll get dropped by the router. And so I think, a similar mechanism could be implemented. Or maybe they did implement. I don't know. I didn't actually look at the commits.
Yeah. Do you have, like, a background in, like, networking?
Yes. Yeah. So I went to, initially I went to Cisco Networking Academy. I got the associate, and then I did the CCNP curriculum. And then I went back to school and got an IT degree, and then computer science, and then I kind of got into the security, and so doing CISSP type stuff. So I kind of understand that domain a bit.
So I guess it's, on the Lightning side of things, I know you were saying that the HTLC construction kind of thing was very intimidating to you, but, like, I bet the networking side must come a little bit more naturally.
Sure.
The nodes gossiping to each other. And all
Oh, yeah, for sure. Yeah, I think so. I just, I'm not a C developer. I've just been getting into Python. We wrote the plugin in Python, and I had to learn Python just for that.
Oh, wow.
But most recently, people have been convincing me to learn Rust, so I'm going to try to get into that. And there's so much to learn.
I've been dabbling a little bit of Rust, too. It's pretty fun. I mean, I have to be a designer of it.
Okay, well, I have ChatGPT open at all times. I mean, I guess I shouldn't admit that, but I do.
I'm not getting on the cursor bandwagon these days.
What's that?
I outgrew ChatGPT, and now I'm a cursor, and it's like they took VS Code and they put, like, a ChatGPT window in it.
Oh shoot, I would love that.
Oh yeah, try it out. It's, like, really cool because you can highlight a certain thing you're working on, and it will, like, the UI is very nice. It, like, shows, like, this file with this lines of code. It's, like, included in the chat box, so it's like
it's like you're not just sending like the question you're asking, it actually is like passing your code in its context.
Sure, okay.
And you can then, once it like spits out like code blocks for you, you can just hit the apply button and it'll just like insert it into your code.
That's dangerous.
I know, right? Like it makes me feel like I'm developing with superpowers, but it's also kind of like, man, I'm gonna like
It's putting backdoors in your code.
yeah, it could be, and it also just makes me feel like I'm like training myself to like be a less good front dev.
Yeah, for sure. Gotta be careful with that stuff.
Yeah, like it's gonna soften up my skills over time. So, well, cool. So we've looked here at RoyGBiv, the website, the kind of demonstration of the plugin. We've looked at Play, which you're going to be showing off a little bit more this weekend. Is there anything else you want to show off? Well,
sure. Maybe just very quickly. My third major project, aside from the RoyGBiv stuff and the Play, is what's called Sovereign Stack.
Mm-hmm.
And what it does is it allows you to deploy a bunch of these websites.
Mm-hmm.
So you see RoyGBiv, and I should mention go to lmplay.guide as well for getting information about that project. But Sovereign Stack allows you to deploy a bunch of these websites. And so, you can,
search for it.
Yeah, go to sovereign-stack.org is the website. And you can go to the examples page. I need to fix the there. So if you scroll down, I have a number of examples. I started with oldcitybitcoiners.info, which is a meetup in Florida that we attend. And then also, I guess that would be a good place to start. Click on that. Go click on that, and then scroll down a bit and go to the website. So that first link there.
This one right here?
Up.
I see.
There you go. Okay, and so, for a while there, we were announcing the meetup. And so if you click the first one, Hangout and Hack Liquidity Edition, so we were just kind of, that's the tag.
I see the tag.
Yeah, there you go. And then, so basically, Sovereign Stack allows you to create these value-for-value websites. So you can see a lot of my work is just a post. And then if you scroll to the bottom, you have the opportunity to leave a donation. So it's just a button. And in the value-for-value model, it's just asking at the end, hey, did you appreciate this? Now, of course, the initial attempts all use BTC Pay Server, but all my subsequent attempts were, I'm basically trying to take what we've done here with BTC Pay Server and make it into a Bolt 12 Prism style.
Nice.
Yeah, so Sovereign Stack is cool. It's a pretty technical. It's Sovereign Stack. I mean, you run it yourself.
Yeah.
So you got to know some firewall and networking, and it uses this technology called Incus, which is a virtual machine manager to deploy VMs on a remote cluster. And so you've got to do all the networking and wire everything up correctly. But if you do all of that, you can have a really cool system that allows you to deploy as many websites as you want. I've probably got about 10 by now, all of which are Bitcoin enabled. Mm-hmm. And the latest, of course, is the Bolt 12 Prism style, which all of this is Bolt 11 primarily.
And so this thing is going to install, I guess, a Lightning node, a BTC Pay server, and then like a WordPress site or another blog.
Yeah, so it only deploys Ghost. All of these are Ghost websites. Mm-hmm. It deploys a separate VM that is BTC Pay Server customized to run core Lightning. Mm-hmm. So in both cases, Play and BTC Pay Server, I chose core Lightning. Mm-hmm. But of course, BTC Pay Server has this like graphical front end on top of all of that.
And does the website, because I've had some friends like Bitcoin on Ghost, does like that button, is that like integrated with Ghost in any way, or is that just like a button that like redirects you to BTC Pay Server?
Yeah, essentially. So in Sovereign Stack, it all goes to the same front end Nginx web server. And then if you're doing BTC Pay.domain. whatever, it kind of routes that request to the BTC Pay Server VM. So it's pretty quick in that regard. It doesn't have to do any extra DNS resolution and stuff like that.
Well, is it, and I guess what I'm curious about it is like if I just donated on that post there, does it like, do you get a BTC Pay? Is there like any indication like, oh, this one specific post was given a tip?
Yeah, so what you do in BTC Pay Server is you provision a number of stores.
Mm-hmm.
So I essentially have one store provision for every website.
Yeah.
And then you can create these little point of sale applications.
Mm-hmm.
So that one, the ones you saw where you put it in the keypad, it's just like a regular keypad point of sale.
Mm-hmm.
And so yeah, all of the transactions that are going through are going to a specific like line of accounting, if you will.
Yeah.
So I can see which website is, earning money. And let me tell you, most of them are not.
Well, I mean,
Not yet, anyway. Hopefully, maybe.
Yeah, I mean, that's the thing with all of this is that, the people who I think really get Bitcoin are holding on to their stash.
Sure. I get it.
But, and then like the kind of people who, I don't know though, it's interesting because then, with the whole like Nostr phenomenon, it's like now, like people are just tipping random stuff like, oh, they said something funny.
Mm-hmm.
Sick burn. Here, I'm going to zap you. So I don't know. There's something very much about like the context of the like tipping that matters a lot.
And I think it's mostly just that we're in the monetization phase of Bitcoin, and people are just hoarding it. I hate to use the pejorative hoard. They're saving their money.
Yeah.
But they just try to reduce their total outlays, and sending a tip to a blog post is like, unnecessary expense.
Yeah.
But that's okay. We'll keep going, and maybe over time people will want to part with their sats. We can turn cash flow positive.
Well, yeah, I think so too. And it's like, I don't know. It's the whole value for value thing is an interesting thing, and that's also kind of a philosophical discussion about like is it going to work? Should it work? All of these things because I don't know. I've got a lot of thoughts and feelings about value for value. Like I like the idea conceptually, and I do like the idea of people just like supporting whoever they want to support directly, whether it's an artist or musician, writer, journalist, whatever. It is kind of good that you should just be able to support that person directly. Pragmatically, I wonder if it's going to work. Like, I wonder, I think what we've seen with like YouTube influencers and stuff is that there's like people who I don't know, there's like a few people who just like really make it big and they make a living off of like direct support content creation, and then it's kind of like the economics of it just like doesn't work for everybody. So it's like not everybody's going to go land a job with that.
Yeah, sure. It's a lot to think about, but I think in time, the culture will turn more. Let's go ahead and tip. And the thing is that you're really there's a big bell curve. There's going to be a ton of people that are going to read it and never tip, but you're just going for that small minority that are willing to leave a tip, and some might be OGs that might leave you a substantial tip. So
yeah, absolutely. It's like Amanda Palmer's book, The Art of Asking. She talks about basically being a busker on the street corner, like in a costume, like do a performance. And it's really interesting because it's like, like some people like they enjoy what you do, but they're not going to pay you anything. And then there's other people who don't really enjoy what you do, but they give you a small amount just because they like want to support the arts or whatever. And then there'll be like one person who just for whatever reason like gives you $100 bill,
right?
Just because they're like, for them it moved it. It's like, well, how much was the performance really worth to this person? Was worth $100 to this person. It might have been worth $100, but they didn't have $100.
Mm-hmm.
But it's like maybe with a large enough economy, it just kind of balances itself out in the market,
Yeah, and at the end of the day, what you need is an economy where the standard of living is increasing all the time.
Yeah.
But we don't really live in that economy at the moment. And I think once people are a little more satisfied with their economic outlook, they'll be more inclined to.
Yeah. Well, cool. So when it comes to Roy G. Biv, Ellen Play, all this kind of stuff, are you looking for open source contributors? Are you looking for feedback? What's next?
Sure. We're always looking for more contributors on the core lighting plugin. It's currently written in Python, like I said, but we've been thinking about moving to Rust potentially. Mm-hmm. So if there are any Rust developers that want to kind of help us along that journey, we'd be grateful. And we have a long list of good ideas, I think, for implementation on our issues page. One of which I should just quickly mention is if someone has a large outlay, we could issue withdrawal offers and send them over Nostr or something, right? So every 2-day and say, hey, you have 20,000 sats to withdraw, and you can use withdrawal. So lots of really interesting things like that we could implement, I think.
Sort of a Nostradamus involved here too.
Yeah.
So, awesome. Well, that probably wraps it up, unless there's anything else you can think of.
No, I think that's
awesome. Well, thank you so much for joining, and everybody go check out the roygbiv.guide website to learn more about multiple prisms.
Hey, thanks for listening. I hope you enjoyed this episode. If you want to learn more about anything that we discussed, you can look for links in the show notes. That should be in your podcast player, or you can go to atlbitlab.com/podcast. On a final note, if you found this information useful and you want to help support us, you can always send us a tip in Bitcoin. Your support really helps it so that we can keep bringing you content like this. All right, catch you later.